This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. There's no on this day today, unfortunately. But anyhow, the birthday boy today is someone who's still living, who is now 89 years old, and was in the news for all the wrong reasons because of his involvement in corruption in hockey. He is a disbarred Canadian lawyer, hockey agent, and promoter. He represented Bobby Orr and Daryl Sittler, was the first executive director of the NHL Players Association, and actually provided the opportunity for pros to play in international hockey, such as the 7 Series in the Canada Cup. Unfortunately, fraud and embezzlement caught up to him, and he was imprisoned. And he abused his position for many years. He was once the member of the Order of Canada and in the Hockey Hall of Fame, but both organizations disbarred him. He is Alan Eagleson, who's still alive, actually. Eagleson graduated from the University of Toronto in law and was huge. He was an advisor to Bob Pulford when he played for the Leafs and all that. Carl Brewer said he wanted Eagleson to be his agent. So, anyway, Eagleson looked pretty good and all that. Eagleson wanted a union because he figured that NHL owners were just giving other key players. So he was right. He was totally right. Anyway, so his influence actually was huge when he negotiated Bobby Orr's first pro contract with the Bruins. Now, Orr wasn't drafted by the Bruins. He was signed to a C-class form in 1960, which meant he went to Oshawa and all that before the Boston Bruins. This led to beginnings of agents in hockey. Eagleson would also try to get Carl Brewer to get his amateur status reinstated so he can play in the Olympics. And he also was instrumental in having the Springfield Indians team fight back against Eddie Shore, because the legendary Boston defenseman actually was kind of a dick as an owner. He would skim on everything and make the players do stupid stuff. Don Cherry talked about him in his book in the 1980s. Anyhow, so Eagleson helped the Springfield Indians revolt against Eddie Shore, and it worked. He was the catalyst for the NHLPA, and it was formed in 1967. So for 25 years, he was the executive director. Unfortunately, Eagleson got himself into hot water by 1979, mostly because Punch Imlach, who was hired to come back to Toronto after the failings of Roger Nielsen as coach and Jim Gregory as GM. So Imlach would be both GM and coach. And Imlach had a hardline stance that, he had his 60s thinking in the 1970s. Eagleson represented more than a dozen Leaf players. And Ballard and Imlach didn't like it. Imlach thought Sittler had too much influence on the team and tried to undermine his authority. Imlach was not too happy when Sittler and Palmentier tried to appear on the Hockey Night in Canada intermission show Showdown. Eagleson told Imlach that it would cost a lot of money to get Sittler to waive the no-trade clause. All that. Anyway, Eagleson also negotiated a game between the Leafs and the Canadian Olympic team for Ronald McDonald House, but unfortunately Sittler didn't think that it was fair. Him and Eagleson thought it wasn't fair, so they decided not to play that exhibition game. That was the start of the end, as Imlach was pissed off. He sent Lanny McDonald to Colorado, mostly as a way to try to get Sittler off his game, and it worked in a sense. Eagleson was one of the most powerful men in hockey. He got to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1989 as a builder, the first instance of a union official being elected to the Hockey Hall of Fame. to a Hall of Fame in a major team sport. Marvin Miller would be his second one, 2020. Eagleson had a close relationship with league president John Ziegler. And for all intents and purposes, the NHL of the 1980s were ruled by three people: Ziegler, Eagleson, and Bill Wirtz of the Blackhawks, who was the owner and chairman of the NHL Board of Governors. Anyway, Eagleson would promote the sport through international means and organized the 1972 Seven Series between Canada and the Soviet Union. 4 games in Canada, 4 over in Russia. And it was amazing and all that. Because, the Soviets were dominating and all that because they had their quote-unquote amateur professionals and all that. It was amazing and all that. And Eagleson said that the WHA stars were not allowed to be in the Summit Series. So Bobby Hull, Gary Cheevers, and Derek Sanderson were not allowed to be in the Summit Series. However, the WHA did throw a Summit Series between Canadian players who played in the WHA and the Soviets. That didn't go over so well, the 74 Series, because the Canada team sucked in that one, only winning 1 game, compared to winning the 72 Summit Series for the NHL stars. But Eagleson would garner international attention by attempting to confront off-ice officials after the goal judge failed to give Canada a goal and all that. He was seized by soldiers of the Red Army. Eagleson was escorted away from the soldiers of the Red Army, and then he flipped the middle finger to the Soviet crowd. It was funny. If you watch the Corner Gas episode, the good old table hockey game, Wanda does that. Because Wanda tries to tell Brett that if the game ends in a tie, Karen will win by goals. And then Davis takes her away, and then Wanda flashes the middle finger at everyone. And Karen says, that's not wholesome entertainment. Regardless, Eagleson was also active in politics for many years. In 1963, he tried to get into the House of Commons for the PCs. The funny thing is, in the riding he won at York West, he was defeated by hockey player Red Kelly. He was elected as a member of provincial parliament for Lakeshore. He would try to help the PC party, and it was part of why the PCs dominated Ontario in the 70s and 80s. Anyway, controversy would soon follow. As Eagleson had his power grow, concern was raised about his multiple roles as union chief, player agent, and hockey promoter. He was wearing too many hats. Suspicions rose that he was keeping a substantial windfall from the Canada Cup private from other people. Anyway, player agents Rich Winter and Ron Seltzer teamed up with former NFL unit official Ed Garvey to have a review of the operations. Anyway, the player agent said that Eagleson was skimming money from advertising on the boards and had lent pension money to friends. Eagleson weathered the storm because of the executive community having longtime associates, kiss-ups, if you will. Or kiss-asses, sorry. Anyway, Eagleson said he would step down in 1992 as executive director, thinking he probably was in too long. Sadly, though, Russ Conway, who was the sports editor of the Eagle Tribune, a very small paper in Massachusetts, began an investigation of Eagleson's performance in office. And Conway said something was amiss and all that. Conway would interview many NHL personalities, thinking that it would work out. The Canadian journalists didn't look into the rumors, mostly because they were friends with Eagleson and they didn't want to piss him off. So then he decided to publish a series called Cracking the Ice, Intrigue and Conflict in the World of Big Time Hockey. It was supposed to be 6 months, but it would run for most of the nights, and it was a Pulitzer nomination. Conway said that Eagleson had embezzled player pension funds for many years. And for example, after Bobby Orr's contract with Boston ran out, Eagleson said that the Hawks had a deal on the table that Orr could not refuse. And it was emerged that the Bruins actually offered Orr a lucrative contract, including an 18% stake in the team. So Eagleson basically said that the Blackhawks were better. Eagleson was close to Bill Wirtz, but Bill Wirtz was not charged with wrongdoing. Anyway, Orr was one of Eagleson's strongest supporters, but broke off with him after realizing he was cheated and all that. Orr's career ended because of serious knee injuries, and learned from an accountant that he was insolvent from tax liabilities, thinking, I'm safe because of high salaries. Orr would take years to recover his fortune, and he's done pretty well. And of course, Eagleson's actions regarding disability claims by former players was huge. Eagleson was accused of taking large payments from insurance claims before the players filing them received their share, saying that he earned a fee. And there was no fight. Eagleson just took the money and all that. Anyway, yeah. It's huge. Conway would have many stories about Eagleson's crimes over the next 9 years. For instance, he had reimbursed more than $62,000 for personal expenses from 87 to 89. He also revealed that the NHLPA footed the bill for expensive clothing, theater tickets, and a luxury apartment in London, England. Many players were led to believe they were playing in the Canada Cup for free because all the money was going to their pensions, but no. Carl Brewer would have something to say about Eagleson's problems. So Eagleson was charged by the FBI 34 counts of racketeering, obstruction, drugs, embezzlement, and fraud in 94. But he had political clout still. But the RCMP then decided to charge Eagleson with 8 counts of fraud and theft. But by 97, he was finally extradited to the United States. And people said that Eagleson would not have been charged if it wasn't for the American justice system. Eagleson decided to plead guilty to counts of mail fraud in Boston, was fined $700,000. But later that year, he did plead guilty in Toronto to 3 counts of fraud, embezzling Canada Cup proceeds. He was given 18 months in prison, but he only served 6. Eagleson basically has been unrepentant about his crimes. Anyway, Eagleson was removed from the Order of Canada and then a Hockey Hall of Fame. He didn't want to resign, but he was forced to in a sense, because when Eagleson made his guilty plea, Brad Park read a statement saying, I challenge the Hall of Fame to remove Alan Eagleson. If they don't, I will request to be removed. I do not want to be on the same wall as that man. And many players decided to follow Park's lead and threatened to resign from the Hall of Eagleson was allowed to remain. Eagleson then decided to resign before a final vote, and he was basically done for. Anyway, he still had a good legacy with the NHLPA. I mean, he got it off the ground. It got the players to have more rights against the owners. Sometimes it doesn't work out well, but it did. It actually was good. And he also had a good legacy about international hockey and all that. Because I believe international hockey would not have been the way it was if it wasn't for Eagleson. That's true and all that. Anyway, Eagleson's basically remained out of the limelight. So he should have. So Eagleson's still living, but when he dies, he'll be sent down. Down where? Down there in hell. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.